On today's episode of the Fresh Brew Run Club, my initial run review of the ASICS Superblast 3. Let's dive into it. Welcome back to the Fresh Brew Run Club. My name is Aaron, and today we have another shoe review. It is the ASICS Superblast 3, probably the most hyped up running shoe of 2026 so far. Feels like my social media feeds are nothing but Superblast 3. So I have run a couple times in this shoe, so I'm going to give my initial run thoughts. We'll do a little breakdown of the details, the stats around this shoe, and then we'll take a look at the bottom all the way to the top to just get a glimpse of what this shoe actually is. Then I'll talk about my experience running about twice in this so far, about 14 miles total. And then we'll get into what I think this shoe is for and what I plan on using it. And finally, we'll do a couple comparisons. So with that, let's jump into it. So a couple stats for you. This shoe has an 8mm heel to toe drop. The heel is 46.5 millimeters high and it drops down to 38.5 millimeters. It has two different foams in the midsole. It has what is called FF Blast Plus, which was in the previous version of the Superblast. And then it has this new foam called FF Leap, which according to ASICS, word for word, is influenced by our Metaspeed models. It is 33% lighter and 13% more responsive than the FF Blast material in previous shoes. We'll talk a little bit later about what I think ASICS did with that 33% weight savings, but this is like ASICS's high-tech daily trainer, top-of-the-line daily trainer. It costs $210 at retail. It's been out for a little while, and it is still available. So I think ASICS learned their lesson with the Superblast 2, where that was such a popular shoe. Every time they released a new colorway, it basically immediately sold out. It was kind of hard to find them at times. This appears to be a much wider release. And yes, I am a little bit late to the game. I know a lot of other reviews have come out already of this shoe, but listen, I bought this with my own money and I'm going to give a completely unbiased review. So those are the high-level stats of this shoe. I would describe this as a max cushion shoe. ASICS describes it as a max cushion shoe on their website, but I think there's a little bit of nuance I'll talk about later. But first, let's do a breakdown of this shoe, starting with the outsole. So it's actually a fairly minimal outsole. You see there's not a whole lot of rubber. It's that green material. There's a lot of exposed midsole foam, which I think the bottom portion of the midsole foam is that FF Blast Plus material, and then the top portion is that FF Leap material. At least that's based on looking at this shoe and where things are labeled. That's kind of what I'm surmising just from the eye test, but not a ton of outsole rubber. My Superblast 2s were super durable. I have like 330 or so miles on those shoes and they are still in great shape. So hopefully these hold up just as well, specifically the outsole. I put a lot of wear and tear on the midfoot as well as the heel. So I'll be keeping a close eye on how these wear and tear over time. Going up to the midsole, like I said, it looks like there's two different foams. There's the FF Blast Plus and then there's the FF Leap on top. It does look like it's a really, really high stack height. I mean, it is high. It's 46.5 millimeters. So they are high, but they're not quite as high as you would think based on the midsole because your foot sort of sits somewhere underneath where the midsole comes up over the heel cup area. So not quite as aggressive as maybe they look just from first glance, but still a lot of midsole foam. Moving up to the upper, couple things stand out right away. I do think this is going to be a breathable shoe. It's not exactly hot yet in Michigan, but I can feel a little bit of wind on the feet. The first place I noticed that was in the tongue area. There's some holes in the top of the tongue. Looks like they used a hole puncher to make some holes there. And then there's some ventilation in the toe box area. So I'm optimistic that this is going to be a fairly breathable shoe. The top upper material is pretty light. There's not much to it, which is I think a good thing. Saves weight, keeps your feet from overheating. And then the heel area has a lot of padding in that heel collar area. I don't think I'm gonna have any issues with heel lockdown or heel slip. It's gonna be nice and snug around my ankle. And then going up to the tongue, I'll talk about my experience with this in a second, but it's a pretty thin tongue. Not much padding on this. Definitely more of a racing style tongue as opposed to like a padded tongue that you might see in the Vomero Plus. The shoelaces look like they're just ASICS's standard shoelaces, nothing special. I would argue that is like the least premium element of the shoe. Everything else does scream high end, and it should. It's $210, except for the laces. They just look like kind of basic laces. So let's just talk about the overall design, like how it looks. I actually care about how a shoe looks. I know a lot of people don't care at all. There's 3 colorways that came out. There's this one, which is kind of like a white sort of pink salmon colorway. There's a blue colorway, and then there's a black and white colorway. I thought this one was the best looking one. The blue one to me reminded me of dark blue jeans, which is not exactly something that screams fast to me unless you're Truett Hayes running a marathon. So I went with the lighter colorway. It kind of has this like salmon pink color, which a salmon is a very athletic fish. You know, they swim upstream, they swim over waterfalls, they dodge bears. That's the kind of animal that I'm trying to emulate. Of course, minus the whole like laying eggs and dying once I reach my destination. I'm gonna try to avoid that portion of the salmon life cycle, but I'm hoping to channel the power of 1,000 salmon when I put these shoes on. So overall, I think it's a good design. It's kind of got this cool like heat signature sort of ASICS logo. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that they can do with future colorways. I do like the way the midsole is kind of shaped with all these different angles. It almost reminds me of like a Lamborghini or something, which kind of is the Lamborghini of daily trainers. So let's talk about my first runs in these shoes. So like I said, I've done 2 runs. I did a 6-mile run, and then I did an 8-mile run earlier today. Kind of mixed up the paces. My first run was mostly easy, and then my second run, I just went all over the place. I went easy, I went faster, I got down to my half marathon pace, which was pretty cool. Overall, my initial impression of this shoe, it is really, really comfortable. More comfortable than the Superblast 2. There is a ton of foam. It is just super soft without being really unstable. So I mentioned that 33% lighter foam. I think ASICS recognized that they could save some weight with this new foam and then just added more foam. It's technically lighter than the Superblast 2 by 0.4 ounces. This shoe weighs 8.4 ounces. The Superblast 2 weighed 8.8 ounces. So it is a little bit lighter, but it also has more foam. It feels more cushioned underneath my feet. I think this shoe is a little slower than the previous version. I know I'm kind of getting into my comparison to the Superblast 2. I think ASICS is prioritizing comfort over speed in this shoe, which kind of makes sense based on the Mega Blast, which came out a few months ago. That's like the faster daily trainer. This is more of a long run shoe. So let's get into my experience after my first couple runs. Putting this shoe on, it's true to size. I'm a size 10, I got a size 10, and it fits. There's a little extra room in the toe box, which is totally fine. You wanna have that, especially if you're gonna use this for long runs. Your foot is going to expand over time. You wanna give your toes a little room to breathe in the shoe, and there's room to breathe without it being too loose. So true to size. The other thing I noticed when I was lacing these up, I mentioned the tongue being a little thinner. The tongue's kind of fidgety. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how tight I need to tie everything and how everything sits together. I think it's technically a gusseted tongue, although it's not attached like all the way to the side of the shoe or to the upper. There is a little room for it to move around, which, you know, it's going to take some adjusting. I would say it's a little fidgety. It's not an issue, but it's probably going to take me 2 or 3 more runs before I know exactly how to lace these shoes up. So taking this out on a couple runs, I've run a few different paces. I've run my easy pace. I have run all the way down to my half marathon tempo pace. I would say my first reaction is this shoe is definitely lighter, and it's definitely more cushion. I think the new foam, which is lighter than the old foam, allowed ASICS to actually add more foam to this shoe while still reducing the weight, because 33% lighter foam, that gives you a lot of extra foam that you can add without making it heavier than the previous version. That's a lot of math I'm not going to do on the YouTube channel here, but you can kind of get what I'm saying. Lighter foam means they can add more foam and still save some weight compared to the previous version. So that is definitely noticeable. It's soft, but it's also very stable. It definitely responded well when I picked up the pace, although this is not like the fastest shoe in the world. I think they added comfort. They prioritized comfort in this version compared to the Superblast 2. So if you're looking for like a fast shoe, let me wait for this plane to fly by. So if you're looking for like a really fast shoe, I don't think this is it. I think that's where you want to go with the Mega Blast, which I haven't run in the Mega Blast yet, but I have heard that it is like a fast daily trainer or more of a tempo shoe. I think they slowed this down a little bit compared to the Superblast 2. But it was still pretty responsive when I picked up the pace, just not quite as fast as maybe it used to be. The other thing I noticed, it has rained a lot recently here in Michigan, and the ground has been wet, maybe a little bit slippery, maybe not much traction. These have really good traction. You can almost feel your feet kind of sticking to the ground, and I don't know if it's the outsole material or just the way that the outsole is shaped, but really good traction, surprisingly good traction. It handles really well around corners from both a foam stability standpoint, but also that outsole rubber is going to get you a lot of good grip when you're rounding the corners. So I really had no issue rounding corners, which is not always the case when you're running in kind of a max cushion shoe. You got to be a little bit careful, but with these, I felt very comfortable taking sharp turns at higher speeds. So what am I going to use these shoes for? These are going to be my go-to long run shoe. Like I said, it's a little bit slower, but not slow enough where I would push these to like an easy run or a recovery run type of shoe. I actually like the changes that they made compared to the Superblast 2. I felt like the Superblast 2 was a little slappy. So I'm a heel striker, so I am landing on that heel area or that midsole area depending on how fast I'm going. Then I'm coming down on the forefoot after I land and roll through my stride. It was slappy in the Superblast 2. The Superblast 3s are still a little slappy, but much less. I think there's just more foam. They're just softer. They're more comfortable. They're more cushioned. It feels more natural for me. So I'm going to use these for long runs. I think in a pinch, I could do like my tempo pace or my race pace. Like it wouldn't be a major issue, but really do want to focus on the long runs. And I can take these out. And I can also take these out on easy runs, no problem, but I think they're a little bit too high end. I would want to go back to something a little bit slower if I was doing easy runs. So as far as comparisons go, I've kind of covered the Superblast 2 versus the Superblast 3. Comparison to the Vomero Plus, I get asked all the time, how does this shoe compare to the Vomero Plus? Well, I would say this is definitely faster than a Vomero Plus. To me, the Vomero Plus is still on the max cushion, easy run, recovery run type of shoe. If you want a daily trainer that is gonna like maybe struggle to pick up the pace, the Vomero Plus, that's probably your shoe. This is a little bit faster. I think it's a little more versatile than a Vomero Plus. Versatility is a great way to describe this shoe. It can do a lot of different things, where I feel like the Vomero Plus is more on the slower end of the speed spectrum. So overall, really impressed with this shoe after 2 runs. It is just 2 runs, so I will make a video after 100 miles and I'll give a full rating of this shoe. I'm not going to give a rating yet. I think it's a little early to judge a shoe after just 2 runs, but I will make that 100-mile review, and then eventually I'll make a 300-mile review to talk about the durability and how they've held up over time, and is it worth it? Is this shoe worth $210? That's a very valid question that I want to answer because I paid my own hard-earned money for these shoes, so I want to answer that question. I want these to last a long time based on my first 2 runs. So stay tuned for those. Subscribe so you don't miss those. This is going to be a valuable tool in my toolbox as I have started training for a half marathon that I'm running later in the summer. So definitely excited to keep breaking these shoes out. Let me know if you have any questions about this shoe. Happy to answer anything as best as I can. If you've run in this, let me know how it feels. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it an upgrade over the Superblast 2? Is it a downgrade? Let me know in the comments below. But that'll be the video for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you soon.